It's time for another one of the greatest love stories in Marvel Comics. It's the classic story of boy meets girl, girl turns out to actually be Death, and then falls for the foul-mouthed mutant assassin. Otherwise known as the story of how Thanos gave Deadpool immortality just to keep the merc with the mouth from the love of his life. If you only know of Thanos from his appearance in the MCU, you're in for a big surprise. In the movies, he's portrayed as a surprisingly emotional space stepdad whose job gets in the way of his relationship with his daughters. Of course, by job I mean obliterating half of all life in the galaxy in one merciless move that has left irreparable damage on every single living thing in the MCU. A job's a job, I guess. The Thanos in the comics has a very different background. Sure, he can still give a great monologue about overpopulation and the pros of mass genocide on a universal scale, but that's not really where his heart lies. No, for Thanos, it's all about a girl. You see, when Thanos was a young purple deviant with no idea that he'd grow up to become one of the cruelest beings in the universe, he was actually something of a pacifist. One day, a pretty girl befriends Thanos and leads him to a cave she likes to visit. It's almost cute before a bunch of lizard monsters eat some of his classmates, normal elementary school stuff on Titan, and Thanos lost it. He brutally took out all of the lizard creatures, and something awoke inside of him. This whole beating things to a bloody pulp thing was fun. For years, he went full Dexter, trying to figure out just why he liked it so much. None of his experiments ever came to anything, so he decided to become a navigator for space pirates instead. While serving on the ship, he dated so much that he practically makes James Bond look like a nun. He fathered a ridiculous amount of children, but even that didn't bring him any happiness. When he came back home to contemplate what to do with the rest of his life, he saw the girl from the cave all grown up. He proclaims his love for her, but it isn't enough. She implies that in order to prove himself to her, he will have to destroy many more lives. You gotta give it to Thanos. He really did commit 110% to this. His plots went from taking out all of his own children to betraying his own people to getting his hands on the cosmic cube in order to make himself a god. By far, his biggest flex for Death to date was when he gathered all of the Infinity Gems and made the Infinity Gauntlet. As the ultimate testament of his love, he snapped his fingers and obliterated half of all life in the universe. Despite this unparalleled display of power, Death still seemed unimpressed. Over the years, he's tried to move on by becoming a hero, dating similar evil eternal beings like Hela, and finding new ways to become a god. Despite all of this, he still keeps coming back to Death, eager to finally win her over. Instead, all he gets is that disapproving Aubrey Plaza face with just enough of a tease to make him think that they'll get together someday. Of course, the real problem might be that there's another man in her life. A foul-mouthed mercenary that doesn't even have to wipe out half of all life to prove himself to her. Now, if you were only familiar with Deadpool from the Ryan Reynolds movies, you pretty much get the comic book version. It's one of the most accurate versions of the character ever put to screen. I mean, they did have to make it up to us for that horrible X-Men Origins fiasco. Just like in the movie, a cancer-ridden Wade Wilson gets experimented on by the Weapon X program. Wade then has a daily schedule of torture, and even more torture. All of this pain gives him multiple near-death experiences a day. And I do mean near-death. She appears to him several times as he's zoning in and out of consciousness. That's when Wade was hit with the lightning bolt. Just like Thanos, he was instantly infatuated with Death. The only difference is that Death didn't really mind it so much. In fact, it seems like she's pretty into it. The two meet several times over the years as Wade continues to get in near-death experiences. The flirtation has become more and more intense as the years have gone by. There's one point where Death even makes a "that's what she said" joke, in case you weren't convinced they were meant to be. So why does Death like Deadpool over Thanos? Thanos has deep-rooted psychological issues that make it seem like he can never actually form meaningful relationships. Even when he tries to be a hero, it seems like he's disconnected from the experience. While he thinks that he's in love with Death, it's more like she's the ultimate prize for him to win. It's almost like she's another mystical object like the Infinity Gauntlet or the Cosmic Cube for him to acquire. Deadpool, on the other hand, is the exact opposite of that. Despite the fact that he's taken more people out than John Wick, Deadpool has shown that he's a very compassionate, lovable guy. In the famous Uncanny X-Force series by Rick Remender, he even inspires a young, reincarnated Apocalypse to be one of the good guys. This is more or less how Deadpool mentored Russell in Deadpool 2. Both of them also have faces that not everyone could love. While Death often looks gorgeous, she actually looks like Grimm from Billy and Mandy. That's not something that everyone could live with. For Deadpool, I bet he thinks it's hot in a very strange sort of way. More than anything, Wade's just about the most lovable guy in the Marvel Universe. 98% of the heroes and villains in the universe are so serious. Characters like Captain America, Doctor Doom, and even Spider-Man act like they have the weight of the world on their shoulders. So it's easy to see why Deadpool's the only one who can grab Death's affection. The two would be the perfect match in the Marvel Universe if there weren't a big purple mad titan who is determined to ruin it for everyone. While Thanos might really be the jealous boyfriend in the romantic comedy that stands in the way of the couple from getting together, he still thinks he's the hero. He thinks he's basically Lloyd Dobler from Say Anything, but with the lives of trillions of people in his hands instead of a boombox. So when another guy shows up and instantly forms a connection to the entity he's been asking out for centuries, he does not take it well. It's easy to see how this would offend a guy like Thanos. I mean, even from the Marvel movies, you can tell that the guy has an ego bigger than Titan itself. Heck, his ego might be bigger than Ego himself. You don't surround yourself with an entourage of people like Ebony Maw and the other who give monologues about how unworthy everyone is to talk to you if you aren't full of yourself. So it had to hurt worse than Stormbreaker when Thanos found out that Death had fallen for a lowly mercenary like Deadpool. Thanos spent hundreds of years collecting mythical artifacts, conquering planets, and taking out members of his own family just to be outdone by Ryan Reynolds in red spandex. Old Thanos is the ultimate jealous type, and he came up with the ultimate revenge. He curses Wade's already impressive healing ability with immortality. Now, Wade would basically have to be obliterated on the cellular level to ever truly be able to meet his love. Over the years, he has had other near-death experiences and dreams that allow him to commune with Death every once in a while, but the two will never truly be together. I think this was a really stupid plan, though. Clearly, Thanos hasn't spent enough quality time watching terrible Lifetime romantic comedies. If he had, he'd know that the more dramatic a scenario is keeping the two main characters apart, the more romantic it becomes. This just increases the chance that Wade will somehow break every law of the universe to end up with Death at last. I mean, look at Steve Rogers and Peggy Carter. The two of them were separated by decades. Cap even went to Peggy's freaking funeral. Yet, he still broke the laws of time itself to give her that dance he promised years ago. So, congratulations, Thanos. You played yourself. Now that the MCU has the rights to Deadpool and has shown that they're very good at weird romances like WandaVision, I think a Deadpool and Death series should be on the way. I'll be waiting by the phone, Marvel. Your move.